Hello and welcome everybody, and thank you guys for joining me again. My name is Wilky and I'm here to showcase and explain the build that I'm currently running in Once Human. Now this has been a very popular request from the video that I made on how to score 1200 points. So here we are at the, I guess, cornerstone of this weapon. I'm using the R500 Memento, the revolver type pistol. For those of you who do not know, you can get this weapon from the Wish machine. I personally do not recommend running the Make-A-Wish thing unless you don't really need anything. I just bought this one for 8,000 StarCrown. The other things that we need from the Wish machine are 3 pieces of the Renegade set. Now, which pieces you're going to be using is pretty much up to you. I'm just going to showcase the setup that I'm running. So, first things first, why or what does this weapon have that makes it hit so hard? First of all, you have a 36% chance to trigger Fast Gunner. Now, Fast Gunner gives you fire rate and attack rate, which in itself isn't super bad, but it's not really one of the key features about this gun. Whenever you land weak spot hits, your chance to get Fast Gunner doubles. This is one of the key features. Whenever you trigger Fast Gunner, 1 bullet will be reloaded into your magazine. This is a very crucial part in order to keep up a stream of damage. Whenever you shoot, you have a 40% chance to consume 1 bullet, and then extra bullet increases your attack by 80%. You can see that there's a lot of layers of RNG in this weapon kind of hidden away, which makes the weapon sway, or rather the damage sway, quite hard. You can see that sometimes this thing hits incredibly high spikes, but even if you don't get all the RNG rolls in there, it still claps quite hard. Now, as far as the calibration go, you can use the basic calibration. I think the one I have is almost perfect, other than not having one like super high rolls, but the precision style increases attack by 20%, range by 40%, we lose 10% fire rate, but we're not really firing fast anyway because it's a revolver, but we do have 2 weak spot damage perks, which is really good. I'm going to be talking about the mods in the later section, so let's move on to the secondary weapon. I think this is no surprise. You want to use the Recurve Crossbow. To be fair though, for the most part, I don't even use it. This gun hits so hard that for most mobs, you don't really need to bother with a Recurve Crossbow. It does come really handy against certain boss fights though. What the Recurve Crossbow does, if you hit a weak spot with the crossbow, you not only get the bullseye debuff on the enemy, which increases damage they take, but you also get 30% crit rate. So this is insanely huge, and you can see that the basic crit rate of this gun is only 4%, so it's not really a whole lot, and this crossbow allows us to increase that quite drastically with very minimal effort. As for a melee weapon, I don't really think there's anything suitable, so I'm just running the stun baton. As far as the armor goes, I'm running 2 pieces scout, 3 pieces renegade, and I'm running the precise shot mask. Now the mask itself isn't super needed. If you don't have it, I don't really think it's a big problem. For me personally, the scout hood is just flat damage and max HP. Like the max HP isn't really needed, but it doesn't hurt you. And flat 8% damage is one of the more convenient sets that I personally keep on running. Now the renegade pants is where parts of the magic happens. Reload speed 15%, pretty good, especially for the revolver, has a fairly long reload rate, so this is pretty handy. Weak spot damage 10% flat, and Archer's Focus. Now what Archer's Focus does, each stack you get 4% weak spot damage. You get 1 stack whenever you hit an enemy, so hitting an enemy 10 times caps your weak spot damage at 40%. You can see that there's a lot of this weak spot thing going on with this weapon, so this is kind of the theme that we're going for. The first set effect isn't really useful for the revolver, so I'm stacking this one. And this one just helps you with the reload speed. This is all in terms of items, what I'm running. As far as the mods go, I personally prefer running the Shooter Precision. When triggering Fast Gunner, you get weapon damage by 1.5% for 10 seconds, up to 20 stacks. There are probably other / maybe even better mods, but this is the one that I found easily available because you can just buy it from Misa for the Sproutlets, and it still does the job quite nicely. Secondly, armor mods. Now there are some variations that you can go for here. I personally prefer Precise Strike. A very solid alternative though is the first move advantage that gives you crit rate and crit damage after reloading. We're going to be reloading quite frequently, but in my damage tests, this one was slightly better than this one. However, if you're running a different setup or like a multi-weapon build, this one might be better suited for you. Alternatively, you can try Momentum Up. I'm just not really a big fan of it. As far as the chest goes, I don't know if there's purple or even legendary variants of this weapon damage mod. If there are, I would just use those. You can even use the defensive one. I think the damage is already strong enough as is. But for me, higher numbers are better. Same goes for pants. I don't have pants right now. What I would go for is probably a mod called 3 Strikes that increases your weak spot damage after reloading for a couple shots. I have not had any luck getting it though, so for now, this is all I'm using. As far as the shoes goes, I prefer slow and steady for flat 10% damage, and whenever my HP is above 90%, I get an additional 10%. Alternatives are Secluded Strike if you keep enemies further than 7 meters away from you. Alternatively, Ferocious Charge, which is sort of the opposite, but you need to kill enemies to get the buff within 10 meters, so either melee them or just run close and shoot them. Or, if you're good at dodging and not taking damage, Covered Advance works just as fine. For me, I just like flat damage, and the extra 10% is nice to have, but this is just a personal choice. As far as the gloves go, I think Munitions Amplifier is just basically one of the best choices. It's flat out damage, and I got pretty good rolls on it, so this is what I'm using. And as far as the mask goes, I prefer the Gunslinger because it increases my weak spot damage in Fast Gunner State even more. Alternatives are if you run or consecutively use your Bullseye, you can run Targeted Strike, but for me, at least right now in my current build, this is what I'm running. And that is all the magic really that's happening here. So since you guys like big damage numbers, we're just gonna do a few shootings here. And you will very immediately see that sometimes I can shoot a couple times, sometimes I have to reload every 3 times. You can hear the clicking of the gun. And even if you just look at the bottom right, you can see the ammo going up, down, left, right. It's a bit confusing at the start. But this is what I mean by it has a very high deviation up and down. Though overall I would say it was like 26,000 DPS, I guess. So this is already good enough on its own. Now, I usually run the Butterfly's Emissary, but it doesn't work on the dummy. So we're gonna use the Jellyfish, but for now, we're gonna pop our crit buff. And there we go, a 29,000 damage crit. You can see that these crits and these hits just range from a lot of different things there. It's just a very, I wouldn't say it's inconsistent, right? But if you're confused why sometimes you hit like super hard, at the next moment your hits are like barely doing a dent, this is pretty much the main reason why. I'll also add some footage at the end where I will be clapping one of the bosses from the silo, where this weapon just shines extremely hard. But since some of y'all just really care about DPS, we're gonna use Frost Slash. Slap it on here. See if I can land a headshot now. I don't know. It is good. And let's see if we can get a high roller crit here going. Maybe not. It didn't crit a single time. Jesus Christ. I had a good amount of rolls though. Let's see. A few more seconds. There we go. Let's see if we can get a nice crit rolling. 49,000k. 49,000, not 49,000k. You can see where this is going. This build is incredibly potent if you can consistently hit weak spots. And that is pretty much all there is to it. For this build, I will show in the footage here of the boss from Silo X1, which is essentially only a weak spot boss, which is perfect for this weapon. And that is all. If you have any questions, first of all, I don't know if there is a guide or like a website where you can make builds to make it easier for you guys to look up the build. If there is, I would be very glad to have anybody post this in the comments for me so I can slap my build on there. Other than that, if you need any explanations on why I did certain things and stuff like that, feel free to just throw it in the comment section or just poke me on Discord, X, whatever. And I'll be very happy to answer any questions. So yeah, enjoy the footage of me clapping the boss, and I'll see you guys next time.